At the end of the show, usually a big bouquet of flowers is given to the star of the performance. So what I decided to do was to create a bouquet of flowers for Her Majesty's Theatre itself. The theatre is getting the bouquet at the end of the show, and that relates to where the placement of the mural is as well, sort of around the back of the building. When we were initially asked to propose a design, the wall didn't exist. Her Majesty's Theatre was still in construction. We had the architect's vision, and that's all we had to work on. So it's quite extraordinary in over, I think it's been about a 2-year process to go from a building that wasn't even in existence, or part of a building that wasn't in existence, to seeing it now. This mural that I thought of all that time ago is now actually there. All of the flowers and the butterflies are all native to South Australia, and they're quite extraordinary, and some of them are almost alien-esque in appearance. There's some beautiful orchids, there's lilies, there's bluegrass lilies, blue pincushions. A major factor in deciding what flowers to choose was also the colour scheme. Part of the brief was that it needed to be calming, it needed to be blues, greens, sort of purples I've worked in there. Not something that's going to like just be super vibrant, but nice and peaceful for the residents who live right next door. I've never worked at this height in a scissor lift before, and it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying to start with. I've been studying a psychology degree, and I learnt about exposure therapy. And they do this to conquer phobias of snakes and spiders and heights. When I first got up there and realised how much the scissor lift was moving and how high it was in reality, I started down the bottom and then worked my way up incrementally, little by little. And for about an hour at the start of each day, I called it the hour of terror. And that was just feeling quite fearful, kind of feeling a bit of the anxiety. And then after that hour, my nervous system settled down, and then I was able to work quite happily for the rest of the day. By day 20, I didn't have the fear at all. It had completely vanished. So exposure therapy works. As you're painting a straight line, but the surface is moving, so you're kind of almost doing like a slow dance with your feet. Your feet are moving and rocking, and your hips, but you're trying to keep your arms and your hands still at the top. If you've got someone else moving on the surface, that would make it even more difficult. So it would be really hard to be doing that line work with 2 people on the platform, unless the other person is actually staying completely still. There is a serious side that comes with doing a project on this scale. There's a lot of safety issues, there's a lot of project management that needs to happen, basically crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. We had to do the mural when the theatre was closed. Essentially, we couldn't, because I cover an emergency exit with the scissor lift, you can't have shows, you can't have people in the building just because of those safety regulations. So that's why it happened over Christmas and New Year's, because everything was shut down, and I had a window of opportunity to get the mural finished. And as part of that was, yes, being handed the keys to Her Majesty's Theatre. It was really I couldn't imagine just to have access to this beautiful theatre. And just roaming around in here by myself as well was really quite funny. There was this beautiful little kind of chirping noise that I could hear. As I got further up, I could hear the chirping kind of getting louder and louder. And once I got over, I could see over into the balcony. There's no one living there at the moment, but there was a mother pigeon and a little baby pigeon, and the mother was kind of flying back and forward and feeding the pigeon every day. So over the period of 25 days, I got to see this little baby pigeon grow and grow and grow as the mother kept coming and feeding it. And I was just thinking, oh, please don't let another bird come along, or I hope nothing happens to the little baby pigeon. What happened was 2 days before the project finished, we were actually doing some filming and we noticed there was a pigeon on a little peaked roof just nearby. And we saw another bird fly up to it and it started feeding it. And that's when I realised that was the very first day that the baby pigeon had flown. So I'd gone from seeing this little chick over the 25-day period, this little chick, to seeing it take its first flight and its mother teaching it how to do that. It's very cool. It's very sweet. So it was some beautiful company. The work that was done in the knuckle boom, I had to have an operator for that because to stop and start would have just taken so much time between going from painter mode to boom lift operator mode, and we only had 1 day. It really came down to the wire in terms of 1 day to get that part of the mural completed. I've had some really lovely comments from people. I haven't had any negative comments, which has been very good, particularly when you're feeling very tired and exhausted. The last thing you want is someone not being particularly generous with their comments. Interesting enough, when you're up that high and there's an updraft, you can hear sound very clearly. So people, if you shout down, people can't necessarily hear you, but when you're up there, you can hear everything that's being said on the ground. It's quite extraordinary. I could see a grandpa walking with his grandson who would have been about 3 or 4 years old, and they were walking along and I heard this little voice say, "Oh, Grandpa, wow!" And I stuck my head over and they'd stopped and they were looking at the mural. So that again was just really nice. It keeps you going. The challenges I faced in bringing this mural together, I think it was really just the scale, the being completely overwhelmed at the enormity of the task at the start. Even though I knew I could do it, there's still that doubt, and you kind of go, is my body going to hold up? Am I going to be able to concentrate for that long? I also really missed my son. My son stayed with my mum and dad, and doing this mural was quite isolated. The time that I had to do it was over the Christmas New Year break, and it involved 8-9 hour days and staying in a hotel nearby and really not seeing anyone. So it was quite lonely. Lots of lessons I've taken away from this project. I think probably the most important lesson that I've gotten from this is the value of mental strength, of realizing that if you feel overwhelmed, as I was saying previously, even the height issue, even just overcoming that anxiety, there are ways around things. And if you have mental strength, there's really nothing that you can't achieve. And you get through it. You get through it, which is, even when you have all the doubts, you manage to pull it off. What do I hope that people feel when they look at the mural? I hope that they have an appreciation of the beautiful nature of South Australian native plants. Because in that process of researching, I found species that were just so beautiful and I'd never even heard of before. And the idea that someone might see it on a mural and then kind of go, oh, what is that strange plant? And then might go for a walk at Mount Lofty Botanic Gardens and see it there in the flesh and kind of go, wow, this is unique. This is about South Australia. This is what we have right here. It's very precious and should be celebrated.
How do you get that painting on the wall all into scale?
You can't talk as well as I can't talk. That's so good. The question I get asked most often is, how do you get your design onto the wall? It's quite a simple process, and I'll... Okay. That's the first time I've ever done that. gestures.